Welcome to Critical Role Demystified. I'm Mike Christensen, and this is the series where I break down the lessons we can learn as GMs and as players from episodes of Critical Role. Today we're tackling episode 51, Test of Pride. And this is going to be a fun one because unlike most of our episodes, all these lessons today will circle the same topic. How to react when your players actually come up with a pretty good plan. But before we get to the episode, a quick announcement. We hit 40,000 subscribers a few months ago, and we were going to do a live stream in February to celebrate, but then I was going through a lot, so I had to postpone. But we're finally going to do that live stream. It's back on the books for Friday, March 8th at 5 p.m. Pacific. So come and join us for that live stream. And I'll probably try to do some more live streams throughout March. Keep an eye out for those, but this is the big one that I would love to have you there for. Now on with the episode. As the game opens, Scanlan asks Kaylee to help him create a diversion to distract the Goliaths who are looking for him. Then the Goliaths start pounding on the temple door and pushing their way through the barricade. Scanlan blows his horn of fog to obscure the inside of the temple, then he conjures a static image of the severed head of Grog's father, Stonejaw-Strongjaw, and he gives Kaylee lines to read as Stonejaw's scary voice, like a very high-stakes Cyrano.
Quick, say, "You idiot, I am but a projection."
You idiot! I am but a projection.
The real Stonejaw is currently outside the main gate, waiting for a battle of revenge against Zanror. Send him now.
That's a lot.
I know. Sorry, Kaylee.
The real Zanror stands outside the city gate, waiting for vengeance against Zanror.
Great, you're doing great.
Bring him now, or you all shall suffer.
That last part was improv. That was amazing, Kaylee.
Now this is a pretty good plan, and Matt just has the herd members roll to see if they're fooled or not, probably rolling insight checks. Sam didn't roll anything on his side, so they're not opposed rolls, so Matt probably just set a DC that the herd members have to beat. Now he's rolling because, while it is a good plan, there still has to be some chance of failure. And the reason he doesn't have Sam roll instead as a deception roll or something is because there needs to be some chance of failure, so Matt didn't want to deal with Sam's absurdly high bonus to deception. I'm kidding. Obviously, you could do it either way. These are both valid approaches. And I actually think Matt rolls because it's more interesting for different herd members to have different reactions. For example, in this scene, there's a Goliath and a bearded human. The Goliath just quickly nods to Stonejaw and dips out, but a bearded human is more suspicious. I don't know if they had different DCs or different modifiers based on their different life experiences, but whether or not that's the case, Matt still felt that there should be separate roles for each, because this shouldn't just be a situation resolved by a single die roll on the player's part. I would still be so curious to know what DCs Matt set, but there's only so much I can comment upon because of the format of Critical Role. Matt also has a lot of power here because he's also playing Kaylee, and Kaylee's doing the voice of Stonejaw, so he's in control of what she says, which means he's in control of what the Goliaths hear.
The main gate. The main gate.
The main gate!
Ow!
There's like 4 gates into the city. Which main gate?
I don't know. Do I know what it looks like?
The western gate.
The western gate. The western gate.
The western gate!
Right. I'll let him know. And he just leaves. Doesn't even touch the door and just bolts out the back.
It seems like Matt is in such a strange situation here, in so much control over whether or not this plan succeeds. But that's actually kind of always true when you're running any session. As Game Masters, we always have an unfair amount of control over whether or not the player's plans succeed. Not only do we know more than they ever could about the scenario, but we can also change anything we want about the scenario at the drop of a hat to make it more interesting and dramatic. And ideally, you won't abuse that authority just to screw the players over. That's the kind of behavior that I'm referring to when I say play fair at the end of every one of my videos. I'm talking about not using your power to just win any scenario. But I also think it is reasonable to adjust your plans to make sure the situation remains dramatic and engaging for the players. We'll see something along those lines a bit later in this episode. But this is a good plan. It plays off of the research the cast has done into the psychology of the Goliaths through questioning Horus, doing recon on the town, and asking Grog lots of questions about his past. But it also integrates material from way back in their campaign. They fought the undead Stonejaw-Strongjaw back in their second session ever. I think Matt really likes it when his players incorporate details from the history of their game, when they dig into their resources and their deep lore like this and find solutions to their current problems. Anyway, the herd members leave, presumably to go deliver this message. Dr. Dranzel urges Scanlan to help evacuate these survivors, so Scanlan decides they should sneak everyone out through the sewers. And I think it's interesting that Matt has Dranzel say, hey, we need to evacuate these people. You could argue he's doing this to help provoke Sam into action, or to give him an excuse to reunite with the other members of Vox Machina outside the city. But there's also some relevant details to Dr. Dranzel's backstory that might play a role. This will not be a spoiler for the rest of this campaign because it never ends up being relevant, but we do learn in the Tal'Dorei campaign book that Dr. Dranzel is secretly a member of the Golden Grin, an anonymous faction of good guys. We'll talk another day about the factions of Tal'Dorei, but I get the sense that Matt already knew this about Dr. Dranzel, and that's why Dranzel is encouraging Scanlan to do the right thing here. Although, if Dr. Dranzel was secretly a Robin Hood-style figure, it does seem a bit strange that he couldn't make a more compelling case to the party to rob General Krieg's house at the beginning of the Chroma Conclave arc, but you know what? That's neither here nor there. We cut back to the party as they prepare for some Goliaths to burst out of the city. Also, Grog realizes that his whole plan to come back from the dead may not work, because Zanror knows he's alive. They crossed paths with him right before Craghammer. He sort of forgot about that. Anyway, nothing they can do about that now. The herd members rush out of the gate and they see Grog across the field. Grog actually pretends to be the undead Stonejaw Strongjaw, so he's basically adapting his plan to get the effect he was going for. Pretend a Goliath has come back from the dead, and see how these herd members react. And he also knew that Scanlan was potentially going to use Stonejaw as a distraction, so it is just barely metagaming for him to pretend to be Stonejaw here. It still works. A few Goliaths rush forward, and all but a few of them fall almost 200 feet into these pits. However, a giant eagle attacks Keyleth from the air and flies away. That was weird. But a few Goliaths are still on their feet, so we go into an encounter, but it is pretty quick, and just gives Grog a chance to stunt on a few folks who are a lot weaker than him. Again, Matt knows that the players had a good plan, so he's kind of just letting them execute it, and letting them enjoy this successful result. There's still a chance of this plan failing, which is why some of the Goliaths get a chance to roll before falling into the pit, and he also throws a few curveballs at the party, thus the giant eagle, which they will have to deal with a little bit later. But speaking generally, this is a cakewalk, because it seems like Matt thought it was a pretty decent plan. However, after the fight, Keyleth flies over the city and sees the herd members pulling sobbing civilians out of their homes and dragging them toward the town square. It seems like the herd has a plan for an incident like this. This is one example of what I was referring to earlier. Matt just changed the situation to make it more dramatic. But he did so diegetically. The situation is changing because the villains themselves are reacting to the hero's presence and their actions. And this is a useful lesson. Your bad guys can and should react to the thing your heroes do. Now, we hear that piece of advice all the time in this hobby, and it's easier said than done. Sure, you probably understand that bad guys should react, but how do your bad guys react? So this is an excellent example that we can learn from. We'll see exactly what they're doing with the civilians in a little bit, but basically, they want hostages, because they know the good guys are here, and the hostages can be useful as leverage. We cut back to Scanlan, who casts Seeming on his group of survivors to make them look like not Goliaths, but like mangy humans and half-orcs, like the kind who may have been in the other tribe that the Herd of Storms absorbed. They step out of the temple, and almost immediately they get spotted by a couple of herd members. Now, Matt is not doing this to thwart Sam's plan, because it is a good plan, but Matt does still want to challenge it, to put it to the test. Now, in some scenarios, you might just say, well, all the herd members know each other, so they would know that anybody they didn't recognize was an imposter. And there are some scenarios where I do think that works. I've done that before when I didn't think it was reasonable that the heroes could pretend to be new faces when entering an existing enemy ecosystem. But Sam was smart. He chose to mask his survivors as the members of the other tribe, the ones that the Goliaths wouldn't know as well. And while that isn't foolproof and doesn't completely solve the problem we were just talking about, it was basically his best effort to solve that problem, since the Goliaths would definitely all know each other. Vox Machina's entire plan for Grog's dramatic return hinges on the fact that the Goliaths in this herd all recognize each other. Additionally, since Seeming can't change your height by more than a foot, Scanlan knows it's going to be a lot easier to mask these villagers as non-Goliath herd members. Otherwise, they might be on the small side for Goliaths. But anytime your players pull the pretend to be stormtroopers plan, you don't just have to give them an easy time of it, because while their disguise may be seamless, they probably don't know any of the protocols or current mission objectives.
We need you to the west gate.
And he kind of steps up.
Who's your watcher?
I think this is Matt's way of making the scenario make sense. You could argue that the herd members would all know each other, so this plan would be immediately doomed to fail, but instead, Matt finds a nice middle ground, where the players can still potentially succeed. This NPC doesn't think it's strange that there are herd members he doesn't recognize, but he does still ask them to give him a name he would know, because there are no herd members here that he recognizes. Obviously, Sam does not know the appropriate response. He doesn't know what a watcher is in this context. And that's the point. You don't just say, oops, you fail, womp womp, but you do challenge them in another way, so this part isn't a cakewalk. It would be boring if they just walked to the sewer entrance with no issues, so this just helps spice it up and keep things dramatic. And it invites the players to make interesting choices.
I step forward and say, "He was killed by that gnome."
No. Where'd you see it?
Right in the center of town. He was a scary undead gnome, and he's roving about. Kevdak sent us to search for him.
A conception check.
Not yeah, but 19. Yeah.
19.
So ugly.
So your players respond with their lie. In this case, Sam does a good job of basically dodging the question about the Watcher. But once again, because Sam didn't roll amazing, Matt keeps putting the pressure on him. He doesn't say, oops, this guy has now figured out that you're the gnome posing as a goblin and using an illusion to disguise the other survivors as half-orcs, womp womp, because that would be way too strong of a leap of logic. But he does borrow a page from The Return of the King. When Sam and Frodo pose as orcs in Mordor, they don't get found out immediately. They get drafted into the orc army.
Center of town, eh? Well, then you should probably come with us then. See if we can swarm it. Follow.
If I may actually, Kevdak said to follow the gnome, and he ran this way. I'm sorry, we have to follow Kevdak's orders.
Make another deception check with disadvantage.
Come on, baby.
Gotta get there before they run out of cucumber sandwiches.
Come on.
Well, same thing, 19.
Yes. All right, we'll send a few more men your way.
Oh, fuck.
Stay on that trail. If I see you again and you ain't got a dead gnome in your hands, I'm gonna cut that head from its shoulders.
All right, you have my word. We're gonna do. Yeah, see you later.
The strange one.
And the two of them head back as one of them just kind of keeps a distance behind you guys, following you as you travel.
Again, it's just enough pressure that feels reasonable, and that Scanlan can conceivably handle, but not so much that it feels like you as the GM are deliberately trying to undermine the player. Sam made a good plan, but it's hardly a flawless plan, so this would be a reasonable consequence. Now, Matt is really good at this, but if you're not sure where the line is for what's reasonable, that's okay. It's something that you will get better at with time. But I do think that looking at examples like this is useful to see what it looks like when you get the balance right. They come to the sewer grate and they start sneaking into the sewers, but one of those herd members followed the party, and I'm not really sure that Sam realized that they were literally right behind them, following and watching. In fact, I didn't even realize it at first. I missed that detail when Matt said it. But Matt did, in fact, say it. He said they were being followed, so now somebody has some questions for them.
Dranzel and Kelly are helping get the peasants down inside first, at which point the one that was following you guys turns the corner in the alleyway and starts approaching from behind. This is the guy with the long, kind of black and gray beard.
You! Where are you going?
That gnome again. So one of us saw him go down this sewer. We're following.
I'm gonna have to go back and report this. I don't trust...
Hold on 1 second, and I'm gonna cast Hold Person on him.
Sam fails to hold this herd member, but Kaylee is able to cast Sleep on him and knock him out. Scanlan tells Kaylee and Dranzel to go into the sewers and protect the refugees, but he's going to stay in the city until this is all dealt with. And then he scampers off before this herd member can wake up. Now, fun fact. As Keyleth was flying over, she spotted Scanlan's group of fake herd members, but when she rolled an insight check to figure out what their deal was, she rolled really low, so she also did not recognize them. So she comes back to Vox Machina, and credit to Marisha for not metagaming here. She basically says, hey, there's a group coming our way. I don't trust it. I think we should get out of here before they show up. And given what little information the characters have, the group concludes that Scanlan may have been captured along with the other civilians. Once again, excellent reverse metagaming. But before they can do anything, those two giant eagles attack again, and Matt drops the rest of Vox Machina back into initiative. Vex shoots one eagle in the air, and it transforms into an elf, and then just plummets out of the sky. So these are the druids that they were warned about in the last episode. Percy is able to shoot the other one out of eagle form, and that one also drops. Scanlan meets up with them at this point, just inside the city, and Grog confirms that those hostages were taken to serve as meat shields. If the Goliaths see Vox Machina approaching, they'll start killing folks. And then, the party starts discussing going to Wilhan's house, or going to Master Qual's house. And it's not until Keyleth asks, hey, will those Goliaths just keep the hostages indefinitely, or will they eventually start getting twitchy and kill people? And Grog confirms that the Goliaths are not known for their patience. That's when they finally realize they have to go to the center of town now. But I think that moment is really interesting, because frankly, it's kind of insane that Vox Machina discusses going to look for some slight tactical advantages when there are hostages with their lives on the line. But I think we can take this as a signal that the players are just really apprehensive about this fight with Kevdak still. So they start sliding into analysis paralysis because they want to do whatever they can to stack the deck in their favor. Or maybe just stall. They don't even really believe they have a good justification for going to Wilhan's house. I mean, he is a cleric, so it might be helpful, but he's either safe in his house or he's a hostage in the town square, so it would be a meaningless trip. But they still discuss going to see if he's okay because, realistically, that is what their characters would want to do. But they can't keep putting this Kevdak fight off any longer. And even if one person snuck out to Wilhand's house, it would cost resources for them to get there and bring Wilhand back, and Wilhand would just be in more danger than he is right now. They talk about it for a while, but Pyke eventually relents and says that Wilhand is not more important than all of the innocent people in the town square. But interestingly, Matt doesn't say anything in this scene to nudge them one way or the other. They just almost talk themselves into a delay and then talk themselves back out of it. And I don't know if there's a lesson here other than to say that this is perfectly understandable player behavior. You'll probably see your players get analysis paralysis when they're preparing to face a severe threat. But if you've already done the work to make your villains feel reactive and organic, like real people who won't just wait for the heroes to arrive in town, but instead like they might just start killing hostages if they get antsy, then hopefully your players will pick up on that, like these players do here. They do decide to hide in a building and take a short rest so Keyleth can recover her wild shapes, because an hour is a more reasonable amount of time to take. Then they'll sneakily follow Grog as he challenges Kevdak in the center of town, because he believes that showing up will get Kevdak's attention without getting the hostages killed. It's still their best plan, and if the battle goes badly or the Goliaths start killing hostages, then they'll jump in. So they load Grog up with some buff spells and some inspiration, and then Grog has his cowboy moment.
I'll reach into my bag of holding and I pull out my trusty salt lick rock, and I kneel down to Pyre. I say, hey, hold this for me, alright?
Okay,
Yeah, just keep it safe. I don't like getting blood on it.
but listen, I can't lose you twice in one day, okay?
Oh no, I'm not going anywhere. We're just going to meet some really bad folks and we're gonna set them straight.
It feels like it's straight out of a Western. I love it. Hey, Western. Is that anything? No. Grog sets off, and he pretty quickly runs into a few non-Goliath barbarians, and he rolls a natural 20 to convince them to escort him to the town square, as Vox Machina sneaks behind. But it's not just the natural 20, it's also that he makes a really decent argument.
Look at each other and begin to walk forward, drawing their weapons. Not even in approaching.
Lads, no need for that. Traveled quite a long way. See, I'm part of a ranging party for Kevdak. It's very important that I see him. You see, we're family. Now, you can either take me to him, or I can drag you to him.
Kevdak, you say? Family, you say?
Don't make me repeat myself.
And as these goons walk with him, he continues to needle at them, undermining their confidence in Kevdak.
As I was approaching this city, I saw a dragon fly over. Picked up one that looked just like me and flew away. What's it like being the bitch of a dragon?
As Vox Machina follows Grog, Pyke causes some noise, so a few barbarians go to check it out, and Vox Machina quietly executes them. Scanlan uses Mythcarver against one of them, something he has no idea how to do. He's never done a physical attack with a weapon before. This is the first use of Mythcarver. The first of many, I'm sure. As those barbarians go missing and Vox Machina continues to roll not very well on stealth, thanks to Pyke, Grog's escort party sends more folks to check out the suspicious goings-on. But again, Grog keeps trying to keep their focus on him.
Good lord, you're awful jumpy. You see, when I was last with this herd, the mates that I ran around with weren't so quick to jump and hide behind their mother's skirts. Keep your attention focused on me, son. We've got important dealings to meet with.
You hold here, Goliath.
No, I don't think I will. But I tell you what, you make a choice. Walk me to Kevdak, or go check out your little spook fest.
Grog knows exactly what he needs to say to provoke these NPCs because their entire culture is steeped in toxic masculinity. So he questions their strength as warriors, he implies that they're cowards, he emasculates them. And it works. Sure, he's not able to keep all the barbarians on him. They keep sending some more members of this escort team to go check out those sounds because Matt needs to produce some sort of consequence for Vox Machina's poor stealth rolls. But Grog is still able to get what he wants because he's really good at getting under the skin of these herd members. Vox Machina eventually just splits off rather than keep causing issues for Grog by following directly behind. Though again, Pyke rolls terrible stealth as they're trying to retreat thanks to her armor. Matt mentions that Pyke had commissioned some silent heavy armor from Gilmore and they never picked it up, and Ashley didn't remember that at all. Because, of course she didn't. She hasn't been playing since she ordered it. Like, I get what Matt is doing. He's implying that this is an issue she had tried to solve before but didn't have a chance. But I honestly might have reminded her about this armor back in episode 37 or 38, when she was back in Amon, but it hadn't been devastated by dragons yet. because it's kind of not on Ashley to remember that detail, given the extenuating circumstances around her not being able to be at the table. When a player is not able to make the time they normally could make to play, then you kind of do need to give them a little bit of extra help when they come back. But because she never picked up that silent armor, she keeps rolling garbage on her stealth. And bringing it up now, while it's not how he intends it, it just kind of salts the wound in a way that I think is unnecessary and maybe unfair. I honestly think this is why almost no other main cast members ever again roll up a character with heavy armor for the rest of the show. Anyway, thanks to that very bad stealth roll, some more barbarians come sniffing around to see what's going on, but Vox Machina is able to hide and avoid the patrol, although Keyleth does have to use her wild shapes to become an air elemental. So she's going to have to stick in that air elemental form, otherwise she will have wasted her wild shapes before the Kevdak conflict even starts. But the barbarians eventually move on, and Vox Machina follows at a greater distance. As Grog arrives in the town square, he sees peasants being held hostage by the barbarians. He also runs into Greenbeard, a Goliath herd member who is elderly. He's a seer. He has some sort of weird moss-like green fungal infection on his neck, thus the name. And Greenbeard starts to order Grog's execution, but then Grog makes his pitch.
You know what I remember? I remember a herd that nations used to part for. I remember a herd that towns used to quake and run from. I remember a herd that was so proud and dangerous they would never hole up in a shit-stink city like this. But what do I see when I come here? Kevdak, prancing up in a place like this, and what? Bending the knee to a dragon? How far you have fallen.
You sound like your cousin, Zanror. The two of you will enjoy a night's drinking in the hole. But sure, you want to go ahead and talk to the big man. Let's see you say that to his face before he crushes it. Call him out! Thunderlord!
Real quick, when Greenbeard mentioned Zanror and how he and Grog could enjoy a night drinking in the hole, that was foreshadowing. That was a clue for Zanror's current situation. More on that next episode. Anyway, after Greenbeard calls out to him, Kevdak emerges from the balcony of the Margrave's mansion. Kevdak says that he thought Zanror was lying when he said that Grog was alive. I wonder if that's something that Matt added or retconned, because he had Horus the Goliath say, "You're supposed to be dead," when he saw Grog a couple episodes back. But now that Grog has realized the herd members should know he's alive, Matt essentially has to make that continuity match. And it's a pretty clean solution. They thought Zanror was lying. Again, Kevdak talks down to Grog, but Grog is able to say all the right things to provoke Kevdak.
I've grown. I've learned. I've also watched as dragons took the mighty Kevdak, wielder of the Titan stone knuckles, and made him bend the knee. I was wondering, do you also squat when you piss now?
There are a few chuckles that are immediately silenced at the realization.
If you pick a fight that you can't win, history won't remember a blood smear on anyone's boot. The dragon was a stage. I've not bent the knee like you think I have. I've merely let it coexist for the time being. But let's just say that dragon's days are numbered. But it's a shame that you won't be around to see it.
Oh, fancy words for what I hear as surrender. But that's all right. I've always believed the world is what we make of it. And you've shown me exactly who you are. You've shown this herd exactly who you are and what they can expect. To live a nice, domesticated life, where the booty runs dry, where the women are scarce, and where I'm sure there are plans at this very minute to unseat you from your high horse. But I've come to do them a favor. They're not gonna get that chance. You and me. I challenge you to single combat for the pride of this herd.
Now, only members of the herd can issue a challenge, because rationally you don't just drop into one-on-one combat with anybody who challenges you, and potentially handing over the herd to some strangers. But Vox Machina's whole plan hinges on one-on-one combat with Kevdak, and they've been talking about this plan for several episodes now. And quite frankly, given the scenario going on in Westruun, a one-on-one combat with Kevdak for the leadership of the herd is their best option. So Matt offers a justification for why this plan will work. It's a contrivance, but it also doesn't seem like something Kevdak would have said if Travis hadn't chosen the right words to provoke someone like Kevdak, who finds all of his value in his masculinity. So Kevdak takes the bait.
For the purposes of this bout, let it be known that Grog Strongjaw is a temporary member of the herd. But the moment his lifeless corpse hits this stone, he will be stripped of any honor and fed to the wolves.
And then Matt calls for someone to fetch the town square, because Matt has been leveling up his maps, and so the town square is much more elaborate. Kevdak pulls out a red battle axe called the Blood Axe, and then slams his Titanstone knuckles together and doubles in size, which, considering these vestiges are intended for Grog, is a really cool power to give Grog, if he can earn those in this fight. Then the party places themselves wherever they would want to be so they can be ready to jump into the fray, and then Grog and Kevdak roll for initiative. Grog uses his first turn to attempt intimidating presence, and it works. Kevdak can't move closer to him. Travis has been trying to use this power on somebody for ages, so he basically says he just wanted it to work on somebody before the end. Kevdak rages, and a bear tattoo lights up among his other tattoos, because he's a Path of the Totem Warrior Barbarian. And here, they just start swinging on each other. We're not going to go round by round. It's a very tense scene, but it's a bit reduced by watching people do math, and certainly it's not going to be compelling to watch me describe their rolls and turn-by-turn moves. So here are the highlights. Grog's attacks don't do as much damage as he would like, thanks to Kevdak's special rage. So he tries to disarm Kevdak and take away his Blood Axe, but he fails. Kevdak drives Grog onto the spikes on the side of the town square, impaling Grog and restraining him. Grog pulls himself off, but Kevdak is able to disarm him because Kevdak has levels in Battle Master Fighter. So he keeps moving Grog around the battlefield, and he keeps landing these powerful hits, so Grog is taking some damage. They're in combat for about 15 minutes of real time, which is not a lot of time in 5th edition D&D, especially at this level. And then Grog finally pulls out his ace in the hole.
I'm gonna look at Kevdak and drop my arms to my side.
It's already on your side, actually. He disarmed it.
No, not my arms.
Oh, your arms, okay.
Straight down. And I'm gonna say clearly, I've been a fool. You are truly a foe to be reckoned with. And I will slowly drop to my knee.
No, Grog.
And I will shout out, Vox Machina!
2 shots.
Fuck shit up!
2 shots, ready.
And we're going to go ahead and end it there this week. It's 11 o'clock, guys.
So that brings us to the end of the episode, but we also do get to hear a little bit of Travis's thoughts based on the fight so far, and we get a lesson here.
Dude,
was not
he was
expecting
so much more powerful than what
I was not expecting
He's
that.
so big. I didn't know we could
We were ready to give you an out.
giant,
We were ready to give you an out.
giant.
I think it's going well.
I think you can take him.
I think it's going well. I think we got
evenly
him
matched.
right where
We
I
won't
wanna-
want him.
Just 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes.
Yeah, that's rough.
Guys.
Where are you at hit points wise?
133.
Oh!
You're
For another 6
Pansy.
rounds.
Wait, you're at 133 out of your total?
201.
What? He's fine.
Well,
he's
he was
fine.
doing it
I
right
know,
with
I know.
I'm doing
whatever,
nothing
tank.
to him.
Even
Yeah, no, that's true. You haven't
that's
done that.
true.
Has he done any damage to him at all?
Yeah, a little.
Grog?
He's done some.
Yeah, Grog's done it's 34 points of damage.
Yeah.
Wow, out of like 500 hit points probably.
There's different paths to a barbarian. There's the frenzy path, which is all about
really
damage.
big.
There's the totem path, which totem of the bear means you're half damage from everything except psychic damage. So,
Grog, quick, be psychic.
good luck
thinking?
with that, guys.
Quick, Grog.
But yeah, this is where that totem really shines.
Man.
If I steal your Kevdak mini, then he can't be killed.
That's true.
I've got 4.
So wait, where does
Not really, but
So my first thought was, wow, Matt just told them a lot of information. because that is something that we're going to talk about in a few upcoming episodes down the road. There will be some times where Matt will give the cast a lot of info right at the end of a session so they can know what's coming in the next fight, and I'm really excited to discuss those. There are going to be some really interesting lessons there. But then I realized, no, actually, in this case, he didn't really give them any information they didn't already have. Or rather, he didn't give them any information they couldn't have already had. He told them what subclass Kevdak uses. Well, one of them, the fact that he's also a battle master, was already pretty clear. And he told them how many hit points he was down. Now, that feels like a lot of information because Matt does not usually do that. But then again, it's not that often that they fight a villain and then call the session right before fighting them again, so this is somewhat of a special scenario. But also, the cast could have figured out the hit points thing if they had been tracking the damage Grog was doing and then just cutting it in half, because Matt was being very clear that Kevdak was not taking full damage from these strikes, so they could have accurately guessed that he's been taking half damage. And as for the subclass, well, setting aside the fact that they all have the player's handbook and all of them can look up the barbarian subclasses, let's not forget that Matt has already been telegraphing this information specifically so they can know it. That's why the bear tattoo lit up when Kevdak raged, so his players would know that he's a totem warrior. Now, he could have just not said anything after the session, but this is something that they could have figured out on their own, either during the session or in between sessions. And now, they don't have to worry or wonder whether or not that would be considered metagame knowledge. And besides, everyone on Twitter is already going to fill their replies with messages about how Kevdak is a totem warrior, so they'll find out one way or another. And in this case, now the party does not have to feel like they're being spoiled by the audience, because they've already heard this from Matt. Now, your players probably don't have an audience watching your games and tweeting at them in between sessions, but even still, I do think that we can still see the virtue of what Matt is doing here. He's pulling back the curtain just a bit and letting them know, yeah, you can talk about what you figured out about Kevdak. It's not metagaming because I wanted you to know this about him. And if you're going to give character class levels to your NPCs and villains, something I'm personally not wild about, but it's a very common technique for Matt to use in his 5th edition games, well, this is one of the advantages of that. You're establishing a shared language that your players can use to strategize. Matt fully told them, Kevdak is resistant to everything but psychic damage. So the party starts talking about ways they can potentially deal psychic damage. Sure, it's a joke right now, but it's still a legitimate discussion that they can have before the next session. And now you've given them a fighting chance against what is about to be a really intense challenge. So when you let them in on this sort of information, it gives them a fighting chance and it makes them feel better prepared for this upcoming encounter. And it's not giving them an advantage they couldn't conceivably have if they were a different type of player who had perused the other subclasses in between games or had been tracking Kevdak's damage across this battle. Again, this is a way Matt is playing fair, and his players are going to need every advantage they could potentially get. Because what's going to happen next is anyone's guess.
Please do come back next week, because this shit's going to be crazy. You're not going to want to miss this.
Well, it's not going to be next week for us, but in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about episode 52, The Kill Box. This is honestly one of my favorite encounters in the Vox Machina campaign. It's so dynamic and exciting. I have no idea how I'm going to make a video about an episode that is so heavily weighted toward combat, but I do know that we are going to still have a lot to talk about. So much that Matt literally went live on Periscope the day after this next episode to answer questions from fans, sort of like a proto-Vox Machina, because this wound up being quite the episode. So come back here for some lessons about that episode in 2 weeks. I also want to give a shout out to some folks who sent me some gifts off of my Amazon wishlist. Christopher K. sent me the Ultimate RPG Game Master's World Building Guide by James D'Amato, the Pathfinder Player Core Book, the Mighty Nine Origins comic about Yasha, and this pad of graph paper. It was on my list. It's for a video about the different ways to do maps at your table. Thank you so much to Christopher. I also got a couple of gifts that did not have a name attached. I got 2 more Critical Role books. I got the comic about the Bright Queen and the 9 Eyes of Lucian tie-in novel. If you sent me those, please let me know so I can thank you properly. I am planning to make videos about all these books in the future, but I also have a sneaking suspicion that some of these will be among the first books I read to my child once they're born. If you want to support this channel, there are a few great ways to do that. You can like this video and subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell, and leave a comment. Those all help teach the YouTube algorithm that this video is cool and good, and then it gets shared with more people, which really helps a lot. You can help me take the series weekly by visiting my Patreon or signing up for a YouTube membership. Don't forget about the YouTube live stream coming up on March 8th at 5 p.m. Pacific. It should be a really fun time. Join my Discord server to hang out with other awesome people, and sign up for my newsletter to keep up with my updates. If you want to hear me talk about other games besides D&D, check out this video here about Shadowdark. It is a ton of fun. Things got very weird in that video. Until next time, play fair and have fun.